I thought I'd do a series on healing. And the reason I thought I'd do a series on healing is because when you say healing in the church, most people think immediately, well, that's for physical ailments and bodies and everything else. And it was interesting. I was speaking to somebody not so long ago, and they said to me, do I need to move this forward a little bit for you? Okay, they said to me, they said, well, what about people that may not have something physically wrong with them, but there's all sorts of other things going on in their lives, and they need healing too, don't they? And they're dead right. And I was actually thinking about it, and this whole healing thing for a while. I'd written something on suffering a little while ago for Direction magazine, which may or may not make it in there. And I was wondering about this whole subject of healing in a series of 5. So today is Jesus gives sight to the blind. And that's the kind of the topic of the talk. And it's quite kind of apt, given that this morning was all about vision. That we've ended up with this evening is all about sight. And healing in the Bible is an interesting concept. It's not just what you and I would attribute to it in the kind of a modern sense. Healing in the Bible is very much a completeness of the person rather than a particular ailment that gets sorted out. So when God talks about the healing of people, it's very much talking about the whole person, not just a physical ailment. So Jesus, when he heals in the Bible, you see it time and time and time again. He might heal, but he also says, go and sin no more. He talks about their whole being, their soul, their spirit, the way they connect with people. He's more concerned with the whole body than he is about the physical ailment. Now, most of you are probably not doctors, but you may well have seen one in your life. And there is a habit that goes on as you work to begin to depersonalize people because you see so many coming into the hospitals. So those of you that don't know me, I worked as a medical registrar in hospitals. I was a medic for about 8 years in hospitals, which puts me into the older age bracket than you thought I was a minute ago. And I treated quite a significant number of people. And what happens is you get so inundated with people that every person becomes the next problem. So there's Mrs. What's her name? You know, the one with the leg. And there's the guy that came in with the chest pain. And yeah, he had that funny murmur. And you depersonalize people, and they become the problem. They become the illness. They become the thing that's wrong with them. And that's how you recognize them. And so the sick, in that sense, are kind of not quite the person. You're treating the problem, and that's what begins to happen in hospitals. And you will have been on the receiving end of that if you've been a person in hospital. There have been some doctors that may well have treated you brilliantly, but there will have been other doctors that treated you as the kind of the spleen or the kidney. And they managed you that way, and they came, and they probably never even made eye contact. They were busy staring at whatever scar or wound you had, and talking and murmuring with the person next to them, and pointing and prodding and everything else. And some of them do not even address you by name. I've been there, and I've seen consultants do it time and time again. And so this idea of healing in God's eyes is something greater than what we've seen in medicine. It's got a picture of the whole person. So when we say we're going to be, holding a healing service, what actually do you understand? Would it be terrible if we held a healing service and no physical ailments were healed? Does that mean nobody was healed in the healing service? It's a good question. It raises all sorts of questions. Because God has called us to heal the sick. And that means that all of you are supposed to be medics. So we've bought 350 Oxford Handbooks of Clinical Medicine, and we're going to be holding an exam next week. And the first exam will be on cardiology, and we'll be exploring all areas of the heart, and I expect you to know the answers to those questions, because God has called you to know them, so you might as well get on with it now. I'm joking, slightly. There will be no exam. We didn't buy the books, because we don't have the budget for that many books. But let's kind of take a segue for a moment. Have you ever seen a miracle in church? You ever seen a healing in church? I've seen some healings. I've seen some healings in hospitals. We weren't expecting, and they were utterly miraculous. We cannot explain it. The doctors, we were all like, well, these things sort of happen now and again, and we put them down to chance rather than to God sometimes. And sometimes, I guess, in church, we sometimes put things down to chance when, well, okay, the sprain went away, but maybe it was just one of those ones that went away as they walked off, you know. So it's like the footballer that kind of walks the injury off and suddenly gets better. And we've seen it so many times on television, we think it can happen in church too. And some of it might be psychosomatic, because I'm a medic and I'm realistic about these things. And some people believe they're healed and then walk out the building and then find out they weren't. And it's just the adrenaline and the emotion and the hype and everything else. And the pain comes back and they realize that it wasn't gone away. And some attribute that to, well, they didn't believe it and they didn't have enough faith to continue to receive the miracle. I think that's a bit disingenuous. Some of these things happen. And so, but I have seen genuine miracles. I've seen warts disappear. I've seen a guy that we wrote off as dead, and we put the curtains around and everything else. 2 hours later, sat up in his bed with his cup of tea and chatting away, and could not explain it to this day, and cannot. I've seen a person get out of a wheelchair when I was younger, and she was paraplegic, and she walked out of a wheelchair. But why does God heal them and not that person over there? And all these questions come to light. Now, I'm not going to deal with any of those questions tonight. Because, to be fair, I actually want to make it slightly more kind of broad before I begin to narrow in on some stuff. I can do a whole apologetics evening on why does God heal and not heal and everything else. And the answer ultimately is, well, he's a person, not a process, so we can't bottle him down to a series of this, and this, therefore that. That's a medical textbook, not God. I want you to turn in your Bibles to Luke 18. We're going to go from verse 35. It's a very, very popular verse to teach to children. It's the story of blind Bartimaeus. Any of you know the story of blind Bartimaeus? Yes? The man that went after Jesus louder. Yeah? And it's verse 35. It says, as Jesus was approaching Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the road begging. Now, hearing a crowd going by, he began to inquire what this was. They told him that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by. And he called out and said, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. Those who led the way were sternly telling him to be quiet, but he kept crying out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped and commanded that he be brought to him. And when he came near, he questioned him, what do you want me to do for you? There's the blind guy stood in front of Jesus. Think of it, he's God. And he's just been crying out to Jesus to have mercy on him. And Jesus says, well, what do you want me to do? Well, it's fairly obvious. You can imagine those of you who were slightly cynics that were standing in the crowd going, isn't it clear? But Jesus likes you to ask. Shall I just put it that way? It's one of the reasons why prayer is significant. It's not that God doesn't know, he likes you to ask. It's kind of like if you go to a doctor and you've got one leg hanging off, yeah, you go up and you expect the doctor just to treat your leg, yeah. But God isn't quite like that because he wants you to recognize who he is. And the reason is because you recognize a doctor for who he is, but you don't always recognize God for who he is. And so he wants you to ask him, what do you want me to do for you? And that's an expectation question. What can he do? Could he do what I'm asking? Do I ask a silly question? Or can he really do what he says he can do? And so he says, Lord, I want to regain my sight. And Jesus said to him, receive your sight. Your faith has made you well. Now, I'd love to be able to do that in churches, because that would be remarkable. And immediately he regained his sight and began following him, glorifying God. And when all the people saw it, they gave praise to God. Blindness. John, is it possible we can dim the lights for a moment? Everybody close your eyes. My little girl says, close your eyes. Yeah, all right. Close your eyes. Imagine tomorrow morning you woke up and this is what it looked like. Eyes closed. And you thought to yourself, oh my goodness, is it still nighttime? What's going on? And you rubbed your eyes and your eyes were open. And you thought, wow, somebody turned the lights out? Is there an eclipse? And if you sleep and you're married and you're sleeping with somebody, or if you're not married and you're sleeping with somebody, we can have a chat afterwards. If you're married and you're sleeping with somebody, and that's your wife or your husband, you turn, honey, turn the light on. And if they say the light is on, whoa, how would you feel? Would you be feeling afraid right now? Oh my goodness. What is this? What's happened to my eyes? What's happened? I don't understand. confusion would begin to set in, fear would begin to set in, worry, concern, a big turbulence of emotions would begin to well up within inside you. What is this? Am I blind? What's going on? And then suddenly there's the next question. Well, what do I do now? Where do I go? Somebody help me. I can't even, where's the edge of the bed? How do I get to the toilet? How am I going to get downstairs and find the food? How am I going to be able to figure out where the stairs are? How am I going to do that? I've relied so much on my sight for so long. Where, oh my goodness, next question. Are you ever going to see another sunset? When's the next time you're going to be able to look at the face of a loved one? How are you ever going to recall those memories in years to come if your blindness does not go away? Next thing. You need a guide. You need somebody to lead you because you can no longer see the way for yourself. Not only that, you now need to rely on the opinions of other people for what you are looking at. You now need to rely on the opinion of other people of where you should go and how you should get there. You now need to actually begin to beg for assistance. What if no assistance comes? How do you get it then? Do you cry? Do you beg more? Do you try and make people feel guilty so that they'll help you? Do you shout and scream at people? Do you get upset with them? What if they don't even know the way? Who do you scream at now? Who do you shout at now?